Welcome to The Well, a place to sit, be yourself as Christian women, coming together, sharing stories, having honest conversations about life. The Well is where women encounter themselves authentically. The purpose of this well is that each and every woman hears God's voice in every conversation to be reminded of his love for us. So, welcome back today. Today at the well, Kelly and I would like to invite you into this conversation called Thirst Gone Awry. So, Kelly, if you want to kind of kick us off and get us started on
Yes.
what does that actually mean or look like today?
Yes, absolutely. So I want to just take a second to reorient everybody to what we've covered so far, and then we'll jump into today's topic, which is very exciting. I know you and I have been chatting about this for a little while. So far, episode one was talking about how you and I met
Hmm.
and talking about our connection to the Samaritan woman at the well and how we saw that reading as like a blueprint for God's love story for each of his beloved daughters. And I had mentioned like the SPS, the soul positioning system. And then episode 2 and 3, we shared our personal experience with faith, healing, and encountering God and our thirst for him. Episodes 4 and 5, we offered the listeners to see the beauty of the scripture of the Samaritan woman at the well and offered some deep reflections for God's love revealed that maybe people hadn't noticed before when they've heard that. So, yeah, today we're going to talk about why do our hearts thirst go awry? Like, what happens? Like, we're always searching and longing and thirsty for something, but sometimes that gets disordered and kind of out of alignment. So, we're going to try to invite our listeners to explore that with us today.
Definitely. And it's so good. It makes me think about, just made me think about, the woman came to the well, unnamed. I have to remind, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder what, she was looking for. We know she came for water, but did, she expect what she got? And I think that's where, we all, kind of come, we're seeking something.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, and we need that like quietness and stillness in our life to even realize what we're searching for, what we're longing for. I think that can get kind of muddy and kind of confusing as we get caught up in busyness of day-to-day life. So hopefully, like prayer time and adoration and even mass celebrations can be a time to kind of pause and check in with our like SPS and make sure that we're headed in the right direction, check in with our map and see where we're headed.
and how can we check in? Because life gets so busy and we can get so off course for so long. So if you could just kind of help myself and all of us kind of use that SPS system as that uh, beacon light and remind us of how we can get there so we can't have that ache go unaided.
Yeah. I think the best tools that I use in my own life and that I offer to a lot of the women and clients that I work with is really just curiosity about ourselves and curiosity about our relationship with God, curiosity about God. I recently saw or heard a quote. I forget who it was from. Did I make a note of it for myself? It was, I believe it was Saint Catherine of Siena. So like, the more the saying is, the more I seek, the more I find, and the more I find, the more I seek. And it just kind of, for me, just kind of amplifies that infinite loop of the growing intimacy that we have with God throughout our whole lives, that like there's never an end there. And on this part of the world, like on earth, there's never an end, there's never a limit, there's always more. So I think just always having an open heart and an open disposition to what am I looking for? And then what am I finding? And then just this infinite loop of, wow, the more I discover about myself and my relationship with God, the more I want more, it's just kind of becomes this seeking and finding that just continues to reinforce itself.
Well, and I like how you use the word being curious, because I think we've lost that curiosity, being curious of what's actually going on in my life, or what's going on today. And some of the sinfulness that we come in contact with is that I'm just thinking of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
If I got
Mm-hmm.
curious of why I'm passing judgment on a situation, and I can give you an example. It's, going out to dinner. My husband and I went for our anniversary to a fine dining restaurant. And, fine dining, you know what fine dining is because you worked
Sure.
in the restaurant world.
Yes, that's my
And,
wheelhouse.
that was, we could go back to 25 years ago. So when I think of fine dining as anything over $25 a plate, they
Okay.
should, dress up, look appropriate. It is a special occasion. And we've lost that. So I went to this restaurant. It was called the White Inn. It was built in 1868. It was founded. So it
Okay.
had a reputation of being long-standing. It was it was a hotel and a restaurant. And you looked at the menu and they had, rack of lamb, prime rib, surf and turf. So it was pricey. So I knew in my heart I wanted to wear something, nice, get dressed up, put the makeup on, put some pumps on,
Mm-hmm.
look good for the occasion. And we get there, made reservations, and we sit at our table to look around and find that people are just dressed in shorts, jeans, ball cap. So I was like, I went into judgment
Mm-hmm.
so quickly, and it was like I had to talk myself through that and be like, okay, why is this bothering me?
Okay. And
Yeah,
what did you come up with?
and it comes from the place of, growing up. My mom and grandma always shared in place being a lady was always part of the identity of a woman, and that
Mm-hmm.
respect of it, and that I had to put on me and realize that society has changed,
Mm-hmm.
and just pray that one day maybe people will realize to think a little higher of themselves. I tried to really render my heart to not be judgmental on those people because they don't know what they don't know. Like they
Sure.
might have not been raised in that era of not having, and when you do go to an establishment that's a little nicer, it's time to dress up and present yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It sounds like the judgment may have been out of like the pain of feeling disappointed. Like it was special to you, and you were hoping the environment was going to hold this occasion of your anniversary of the love with between you and your husband as like reverenced and important and significant. And it sounds like you were disappointed. So I mean, really, underneath all of that is just pain of like,
Right.
man, I pictured this differently. I hope this was going to be, kind of magical or, look a certain way. And the pain was like the judgment came out of like, I'm disappointed. This isn't what I expected.
Well,
So,
and that's why I brought it up, because that's what we're trying to share. We're
mhm.
curious enough to recognize what is this, and then pointing to, yeah, I was disappointed. And how many other times have I been disappointed and just sloughed it off? And then I'm chronically in that same sinfulness.
Sure. Yeah. So I think underlying kind of the underlying event that occurs, or kind of what a phenomenon that's happening, and this might help explain that situation too, is like there's, because of original sin, we are born alienated from God. So basically there's a detachment or fragmentation between us and God. And then there's also a fragmentation between us and others. And then within us, between our mind and our heart, and within us, between our body and our soul. So, like, I think if we don't reattach to ourselves and to our orientation and position in relationship with God, like these kind of wounds or these events that happen can just automatically put us in some habitual patterns of sin that we may not realize. So it does take that kind of pausing and slowing down and curiosity to kind of like sift through and comb through what's really going on here. Like what was my ache? What was my pain? What was I trying to avoid? Or what did I hope happened that didn't happen? So I know a really big buzzword right now in the, mental health field is trauma. So basically, even the word trauma just means wound. So, and a wound can occur because of something that happened that wasn't supposed to, but it can also occur because of something that was supposed to happen that didn't happen. So it could be the absence of something that you needed. And that kind of explains what, I mean, I'm not saying that that's traumatic for you. I don't,
Right.
I'm not here to talk about it, but it's like almost like I had this expectation that this was going to look a certain way and it wasn't there. It didn't happen. So like now you have kind of this wound that instead of kind of sitting with it, thinking about it, bringing it to God, bringing it to Jesus, like you're like, oh, what's wrong with these people? How come they can't just get dressed up for a fancy occasion? So it's discharging it in a way that we can get a little bit lost in if we don't slow down and have enough curiosity about it.
Well, and you just made me think that the way you said it, it's like it triggered me to think about social media.
Mm-hmm.
How if I didn't sit and pause and really want to orientate my curiosity for my oneness with God and really search, I could have been like half the other people and posted on social media. What's wrong with these people?
Right, right. Yeah. And then and that's, I love that you said that, because our sin has a trickle effect. So, like your pain and suffering turning towards judgment and then turning towards kind of blasting or hurting or kind of shaming this establishment or the people that go there, like it has that trickle effect. So like our sin is never just a singular experience, and it doesn't only impact us, it always impacts everybody around us. So it's like a drop of water in like the ocean. Like even it will always impact everything around it. So we have the opportunity to either positively impact and send that ripple effect, or if we are kind of in a place of pain and suffering and not acknowledging kind of that and turning towards sin, then it has that same ripple effect to everybody around us. And a lot of times we don't even know how far down it goes. Like
Right.
once you post that, like you don't see how, another person who was going to go there this week cancels their reservation, and then the restaurant goes out of business, and then the cook gets divorced. Like I know I'm being a little silly, but like
Right.
sometimes just these little like uh experiences can have a profound effect, and like our words and our behaviors and our responses are all, they impact everybody around us.
And it's interesting because probably, and we can look even back 10 years ago, social media, we didn't have TikTok, we didn't have Instagram, it wasn't used, wasn't around.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that's now what people take to get soothed.
Yeah. Yeah. Like listen to this injustice and agree with me and join me in my like anger and frustration.
I mean,
So,
I guess the positive thing, Kelly, is it helps the mental health professionals keep
right. Job
working.
security. Right.
Job security. I mean, but that's not what, we're trying to,
Sure. Yeah.
get at.
Yeah.
The whole point is the thirst going awry. Like, I was disappointed. I took some time and I kind of reflected on it. But these
Hmm.
are things that you and I want to bring to the well. It's like, so you come to these places and it's like, oh, judgment is sin. What is my sin? And how habitual it can be. And how do we bring
Hmm.
back order to the disorder?
Hmm. Yeah. So I really hope this opens kind of the hearts of a lot of our listeners today. So, um, like our wounds are inflicted by others, like I said, by what they have done or what was missing. But so our wounds, we have a choice. We can turn towards self-reliance, or we can turn towards Jesus, or we can turn towards Jesus through others. So like turning towards others. So basically the wound is from others, either what they did or didn't do, but the sin is self-inflicted. That's our choice. That's our ownership. So a lot of times those can kind of meld together where it's like, well, that wound happens, then this is how I respond. Where we really want to like comb through and separate like, oh, this is a wound from whatever experience.
Right.
And then this is how I choose to respond. So it really slows it down and makes it less like just kind of happening in the background.
And I think we kind of shared the other day about, you're talking about slowing it down. So slowing it down can be like plucking the leaf off the tree. And
Yes,
what we
yes.
really want to get to is the root, or the deeper curiosity, pause and sit with it, right?
Yeah, so I use the metaphor a lot of like a tree like you're mentioning, and a lot of times I feel like and when I speak, I'm speaking for myself and then from all of the beautiful people that I work with, but a lot of times people want to change the leaves on the tree just by like trimming it, or getting rid of like a dead branch or whatever. But ultimately, if the tree has a fragile or insecure or diseased root system, it may look good for a period of time, but eventually the new set of leaves are going to come in and they're still going to be diseased. So it reminds me of the reading of like that a good tree does not bear rotten fruit,
Right.
and a rotten tree does not bear good fruit. So I can't think of the exact reading, but basically, like, what you get is based on a secure, grounded root system. So a lot of times people come to me and are like, well, I want to stop doing this. And I think they're expecting me to say, well, just stop it.
Right.
And I don't. I think they're shocked usually when I say, move towards it more, do it like bigger, do it like slower,
Right.
like really move towards it, because I think there's something that the body is trying to communicate. Trying to think of recent example that I had. So I was meeting with somebody recently, and they were sharing that they kind of have control issues. So they feel like they're naturally born, and kind of have the disposition to be a leader, but they feel like sometimes they jump in when they see other people not responding.
Mm.
So I just and really I kind of tried to bring to their attention that this actually could be, and we'll move towards this, one of the seven deadly sins. So this could be the sin of pride. This could be the sin of, I will just do it myself. I don't trust anybody. I don't have faith in anybody. I'm just going to do this. And it's kind of really behind every sin, there's an idol. And in the idolatry of pride in pride, the idol is the self, myself. So I challenged her to pick a relationship that she could cultivate more trust in and kind of give that person an opportunity to step in rather than keep filling that space for herself, which makes me think of another thing that you and I were talking about. There has to be room for God. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if we're constantly filling our lives, oh, I'll just take care of this, or oh, I prayed about this, but it's been a couple days, it didn't happen, so I'll just take it into my own hands. We have to leave room for God. And it just reminded me of that conversation that I had with that person recently.
Well, and it goes back to, I think, earlier episodes, the room for God
Mm-hmm.
is, it has to be planned. It kind of has to
Mm-hmm.
be, it can't
Mm-hmm.
be just, I go to church on Sunday
Sure.
and I get the reading that kind
Mm-hmm.
of repeats itself
Mm-hmm.
cyclically.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, well, why isn't my life changing?
Mm-hmm.
It also is something that you had said. Sometimes the door closes and another one
Mm-hmm.
opens. I
Mm-hmm.
look at this when people have lost employment.
Mm-hmm.
An older person that's been in an occupation for 35 years and they're displaced, of yes, it's devastating and you're depressed and you're overwhelmed, but if you just sort of, well, I'm going to take it in my own hands and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
unemployment, or I'm going to, search everything, or it's like you need to kind of sit with that and be like, okay, what is God calling me to do next?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
pause on it. And it's easier said than done. We've talked about this, in the moment, who's ever
Yeah.
it's going through. When you're going through it, it's not good. But I like
Mm-hmm.
how you said with that person that's controlling, like move forward in it, move in it. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is this a time where your skill set is suited in another area, or is it a time to break free?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we can modify our behaviors. So essentially, that person can stop, jumping in. But if
Right.
their heart desires doesn't change, like, God has x-ray vision. Like, he knows our hearts. You know what I mean? Not that an x-ray is what shows our heart, but like, he can see our internal disposition. So even when we do modify a behavior, if we haven't done the internal work, that behavior will only be sustained for so long. Like, it has to be like, you know what? I'm going to trust that God has put these hearts in these other people, and that they're going to, if I give them space and I inspire them, they're going to step up in ways that they need to. So a lot of times people can modify a behavior, but that's almost like going at it backwards. It's kind of like, I know you posted recently about your renovations and like
Right.
your external, the exterior of your house versus the interior. And it's kind of like changing the siding of the house. Yeah, like you can make it look good from the outside. But if you actually didn't do the modifications on the inside, it's only a matter of time until that eventually like gets seen or witnessed. And yeah, there's just something about, and the sins that we're going to kind of introduce to our listeners today, it's not even about just like interrupting and discontinuing and eliminating these sins, because you don't want to, like, we don't want our spiritual life just to be a set of rules to follow. We actually want it to be because of who is asking us.
Right.
So the rules get easier to follow, the rules or doctrine or, morality, all of that gets easier to follow if we know who is asking us to follow asking us to follow it. So it's like, I want people to move towards, like, you don't have to white knuckle it. You don't have to just like grip and try and like pull as hard. There's no amount of strength or grit that will ultimately like fill that ache. And I know this is going to be a conversation that we continue for the next couple
Right.
episodes. Everybody's like, what are they talking about? But basically, I mean, I guess I'll kind of put it in this way, is like we are basically born with a God-sized hole in our heart that we try to find how to fill it in an earthly way through perverse attachments and earthly idols, because we're just as guilty as Adam and Eve in the garden, who doubted, is God really holding out on me? Can I trust him? Is he going to give, is he really love me? Is he really going to be there for me? So we basically have this hole in our heart that we always have this ache or this thirst. We try to fill through earthly pleasures, and it will never be enough. And that's not to stop those things,
Right.
but it's to reorder. It's to take them out of disorder and reorder them with God at the top.
And just to give people, a lot of people are visual. I like how you said that, big hole,
Mm-hmm.
and you can never fill it with materialism or things on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
So slowly bring that heart into unity, and make it whole by being curious, like we talked
Mm-hmm.
about, taking some steps to look at where the void is and how can
Yeah.
we reorder it and at least step closer to that place instead of always controlling every situation.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge is we weren't, or, you and I aren't disciples. Like we didn't,
Sure.
Jesus wasn't with us. So we're trying to believe in a God that we don't see. And we've been told to trust and believe. And then the way the world is going and our materialism, it's really, we're always, I think is what you're saying, is because of Adam and Eve and their disorder, we're never going to fill that hole on this side of heaven unless
Mm-hmm.
we continue to work and be curious and try to reorder our hearts and
Mm-hmm.
understand the why we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Just the idea that we were told a lie that basically this life would not have pain and suffering. And when we come to accept that this life does have and will have a guarantee of pain and suffering, like we stop trying to escape it. We stop trying to sidestep it or avoid it or, just like we just have to really slow down and figure out like what are the lies that I have been kind of told or that I've kind of inherited about what is my purpose? What is my goal? And the idea of like, well, yeah, I deserve, I deserve a life free of suffering. None of us will
Yeah.
ever have that. Jesus didn't even have that.
Right.
Like,
Well, when you look at that and you put it in that perspective, Jesus didn't have that. He had parts of a good life, or part of,
sure.
for part of his time living with Joseph as a carpenter in his formative years building up, but it was not easy to disciple these people, to get them
Mm-hmm.
to even
Mm-hmm.
listen or believe. I mean, think of all the people he had to help. He had to
Mm-hmm.
make the blind man see again. And even then
Mm-hmm.
people were very doubtful and unsure,
Sure.
about that. So you're right. So if he struggled with this, we're no different. We're going to
Right.
struggle even more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And your point of the struggle, I think, is helpful, that we are going to struggle. And I firmly believe, and people say that, that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I firmly believe that, the suffering, when someone suffers for a terminal illness or,
Mm-hmm.
the loss of our child, that gets that person closer to heaven and less days in purgatory. I just firmly
Hmm.
believe that and trust
Hmm.
that to be true, because that's just how I need to believe that every struggle and why I struggle and work towards the clarity and bringing my heart centered and reordered
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
getting me closer to heaven. So when I do get there, he's like, good and faithful servant. You did well, but you still have to pay a few prices here.
Right.
You know what I mean? But hopefully it
Right.
won't be as long. But I
Right.
just, that's, there's conversations that I'm sure we'll get into in further podcasts on,
Yeah.
pro-life and this whole, there's a lot of going on in the state of New York where it's a pill to commit to take if you're terminally ill, and there's that discussion. And
Hmm.
um, I think you need to be of sound mind and body before you do anything. You have to be prayerful and mindful before you take your own life in your own hands, and that's just from my belief. But that can be a discussion
Yeah.
on another
Yeah.
topic, because we're talking
Yeah.
about the sins in Adam and Eve and working through the thirst going awry, and we're just touching on this cusp that will continue to build upon in episode after episode.
Yeah, yeah. I forget. I definitely forget what Saint said this, but basically, like, I rejoice in the suffering. Just like, and I hope one day to fully feel that with every ounce of my heart. But to go, you know what? This is meant for me. This is designed for me, and this is bringing me closer to God, and hopefully, getting me out of purgatory a little bit quicker.
Right. If there was one tip or something that we could leave the listener today on the reorientation, the curiosity to pray with, or to just be aware this week as they listen, and they like either are like, wow, this is really interesting, but I don't know what I'm doing. What am I listening
Right,
to?
right.
To wrap it up in a neat little bow of like, what is the one thing that a takeaway for today that we can keep building on this topic?
Probably the main one that I'm thinking of is like, we cannot avoid hurt in this world,
Right.
and that this world we will forever be seeking and never be fully satisfied. I think knowing that we will never have like that itch scratched to its full here, satisfied, and hopefully that helps somebody just quiet their restlessness to go, yeah, I'm not meant to be satisfied yet because this is a fragmented and broken world.
And I think that gives us hope,
Hmm.
the hope that it's not meant for here, so why keep seeking? At least it gives me the hope of, okay, I can't do it all right now and I'm not meant to, but I can take one drip,
Hmm.
be curious, and continue to strengthen the heart to become closer, and then be curious in the next life and be like, understand what's happening.
Yeah, and how beautiful that we kind of have set up this platform with the Mother Olga prayer of like, Lord, empty me, fill me, use me. So really we can turn towards God and say, please, Lord, empty me of all my ungodly self-reliance and all the ways that I think I can do it myself and all the ways that I know what's best. And fill me with your peace and your love and your, you know, my undevoted relationship to you, and use me to have that ripple effect to inspire every single person that I come in contact with.
Amen. That was just so well said. And if we can just do that this week, to enter a room and be that blessed, peaceful person, that's what we hope that all of you do this week. So,
Amen. Yes. Thank you all for listening and thank you for your support.
and if there's one woman that really could use this, please share this episode with her. And we always would love your response. Kelly and I are working to collaborate and become one. So in the future, you'll see easier ways to find us, communicate with us, and let us know what you think about these episodes. So,
Yeah. And for future, the next couple episodes, we're going to continue to explore why our hearts and our heart's thirst go awry, because I think there's so much here. I think we'll be on this topic for quite a while. So if you feel like you're still hungry for more, definitely
yeah,
come back
come
because
on back.
we're gonna give it to you.
Thanks, Kelly. We'll talk soon. Bye bye.
Thank you.